Yeah, let me just say thank you for the opportunity for us to get together. Our little team, the original A team. I really think the three people who were instrumental in transferring the knowledge that we had and that we worked towards, and how we really empowered so many students, and we did it with, I don't know, we had so much fun. And guys, we really had so much fun. So can I ask if we can just take these off, because we do have our visors, we COVID distance, so guys, we can take this off now. Breathe. Okay, so
tell us the story of how LISOF, even before LISOF started.
So I think we'll talk about the seedling maybe.
Yeah.
So I was overseas. I was one of those kids who really didn't quite know what I wanted to do. I think I tried a gazillion things. I did teaching for 3 months. I did fine arts for about 6 months. Wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, and went overseas with a friend. And after about how many months? I think it was about 8 months. I was on a kibbutz, and we moved on to a sort of a hostel called Beit Sefer Sadeh, which was out of the town. And after a couple of weeks there, it was on the last item of clothing. I eventually basically ate myself out of my own wardrobe, and they were disregarding some of the sheets, and I put my hand up and said, I'll take a few of those, and I started cutting them up, making myself caftans. But I did it by hand. I mean, that's all I had, and that's exactly at the sewing machine, so there was lots of decorative stuff going on. I thought, geez, this could be quite fun. I mean, you could kind of get a drawstring just by sewing in and out. I created hemlines and waistlines, half waistlines, because God knows enough thread to do a whole waistline. And I came home and I said to my folks, okay, that's it, I've decided this is my journey. And my stepfather was quite adamant, if I'm going to study, he'd done his research, I had to go to the Natal Tech. And actually that's where I met Patrick first, because Patrick taught me patterns, a master of pattern making. You're an engineer, you're a pattern engineer. And I was teaching at Leggett's. I'm not going to go through that whole story, because that's just another whole other adventure in its own right. But I had taught at Leggett's, and after offering a curriculum that I thought was more relevant, having come from industry, and not really feeling that the material he was conveying and trying to inculcate it in the curriculum wasn't actually relevant. And I'd said to him that the industry's changed drastically since college days. Here is an outline of a curriculum that I think is most relevant. And he said, no thanks, not for me. And off. I said, well, I can't teach her with this material. It's just not worth it. And I left, and just so happened that one of the students, her father owned the premises at Boston City campus, and he came to me. She went to him, and then he came to me and asked me if I would go for an interview with Ari Katz, who was renting one of his Boston City campus, renting one of his premises, and his daughter was studying with me at Leggett's, Peter Lee Wolf, and I went for the interview, and the rest is history. I was given an opportunity to set up the London International School of Fashion, which went under the London International School of Business at Boston City campus, because the type of and the mode of teaching was so different, and the type of teaching wasn't commercial, it didn't fit within the Boston basket of qualifications, and so we went in under this business other school because it was separate. And one night at dinner, my aunt mentioned Ingrid, whose kids were at nursery school.
Yeah, nursery school.
And I was saying, I had imagined Patrick already in my head. I hadn't told you that. But in my mind, I thought, Patrick. And she said, no, I've got this person, and she's got these 2 kids at the nursery school, and she's looking for something to do. I said, she's been in manufacturing. I said, oh my God, that's perfect. Who? Ingrid McHendrie. And so I interviewed Ingrid, and I said, I swear, it's only once a week. It was only once a week. We had 25 students, if that, because the whole cohort from Pete's class literally came across to Boston. So we started with 1 second year and a couple of first year students. They had a media school at Boston, and with really funky, dynamic students, and I remember sitting on the stairs looking out for those potential, beautiful, well-dressed looking people who are going to just be a perfect sort of ambassador for LISOF. And so I offered them, I was literally sitting on the staircase just offering free education to, Nadia Osmond comes to mind, and she was on her way, I think, to one of the media courses, and I'm like, come this way. So we had a very interesting start to the school, because it didn't come from and it was never intended, should I say, to be this big business. It was always it started off as, let's just kind of like an unexplored journey. Let's just go out there and see what we can do with what we've got, and what experiences we've had, and how we can share in our experiences. And at the end of that year, being our first year, Ingrid and I sort of held the fort together. And at the end of the year, Patrick came along to do the fashion show, and he kind of never went home. So he came from Durban to set up the fashion show, and by then the school had literally just exploded in its second, and then we started winning Smirnoff competitions, and LISOF just kind of just got this momentum, and it just gathered more momentum as we became, I think, more involved, more invested, and more kind of determined to turn this opportunity, this new seedling, into something quite precious. And it was interesting, because I'm doing this course and looking at our archetypes. We're the perfect match. You're a warrior, In. You're a warrior. And I was saying to Patrick, he's the nurturer, and I'm the shapeshifter. Is the perfect combination that we had. It was a perfect combination. Just 26
It was easy. I think there was never any time where we had to explain ourselves to each other. We just knew how to work together, and we got the job done. I think our skill sets were well balanced in terms of what we had come through. Our industry experience was well balanced as well. So I think on all the stars were in alignment.
That's it. And I think the one thing we shared was our we had a set standard that was almost unspoken.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
It was a standard that, working for myself out in the industry for many, many years, the students that would come and work with me were just so poorly trained. And I said to Shana, unless we are going to offer them the absolute best of what we know, then, it's not going to work. And that's what we did.
Yeah.
We offered the best. We were perfectionists, to the point of which side of the pencil line you would cut.
Exactly.
And that's how we grew, and we grew so well because we were all the same type of person.
Yeah. And I think what was interesting was the baton. I taught design, Ingrid taught garments, and Patrick taught patterns. And I think that we were so conscious of each other's standards and non-compromising. There was that no point at which we could compromise for anything substandard. And we respected that so much in each other, as you said, and that I think handing over anything that wasn't going to be of top quality, we took that upon ourselves to, as our own responsibility. I don't want you to get something that you think's, unfinished business from my side. And I think that containment, we were able to contain, this is our responsibility, and this is how we're going to transfer it from.
And I think
one to
that
the
obviously
next.
that consistency was communicated in an unspoken way to the students. They just knew, because it was across the board. So they weren't getting a weak link anywhere.
Yeah.
They knew that that they had to perform.
Yeah. It was an absolute, and I think that drive in each of us was so infectious. I think it was so infectious because it didn't come from a place where we were forced into feeling, but it was a natural inclination, and it came from a very deep place of wanting them to succeed. There was such a need for all of us to kind of be in that position to empower these people to get the best jobs. And they did, and that's why it was so easy to then communicate our message to the industry, because there was so much integrity, and
The students were well prepared, and I mean, I remember that you were always being phoned and asked for students to come and work in the industry for these people.
Yeah.
You were the go-to.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the more we got them out there, the more that, it was kind of like this recipe, that just works. So just don't go anywhere, just get them from NASA. Just get these kids from NASA. I remember the one year, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was the TFG, new recruiter had said, oh no, all the staff, they just want LISOF students. So what have you got in this, that, and this field? And we'd literally get a list of potential opportunities that we could fill these positions. So the stronger we became, it was self-fulfilling, because the stronger we were out in the industry, the more it filtered through, and so the better students were coming across, and it was also became easier for us to work with very passionate students, and the same within ourselves. And even as our staff grew, it kind of, because we were so tight, it was always about product and always about, getting to the same, as you said, that consistency, getting the same outcome, and it always being consistent. So I think I've spoken too much.
I think a lot of the chemistry between us all was, Shana was head of design, and I did second year patterns and garments. Patrick did third year patterns and garments. So Shana's designs would come to me, where we would have to engineer for the pattern and the garment. But then also at the same time, when you're educating the students, I had to pass those students on to Patrick. And wow, I had to make absolutely sure that we had it all right, because I was not going to sit at the lunch table and be told, you know, the standard's no good. So that was the magic between us, that we, you know, and we would ask each other, and Shana and I, especially working second year together, her with me, we could actually read and solve problems. Like she'd come and say, they want to do this design, and how do we get around yes, this is what we must do. Think about it, we do this, and we'd solve, and we would always be able to make the pattern up.
Yeah.
Even when you first looked at the sketch and you thought, no, this can't be done, we would get around it and we would make it work.
Make it work.
And more importantly, the student would understand what we were telling him to do.
No, look, I mean, there were definitely moments. I mean, when design was presented to you, that you broke out into a cold sweat because, you know, Shana's designs were, the students were ambitious. So, you know, I think from our perspective, I mean, I think in any way, I taught for 7 years at Natal Technicon, and I mean, you're always going to be presented with something that you've never done before.
Yeah.
So, you know, teaching patterns and garments, you learn probably more than you would in the industry because you've been exposed to such a variety of styling. So, yeah, that was always the case. But, yeah, I mean, I never felt that we couldn't do it. You know, we would sit around, we would talk about it, we would problem solve and get an outcome.
Yeah.
And I think that was what caught my eye when I came up to do your first show, was I was completely taken by the level of creativity, which I don't think I'd seen at any other institution before. And I think that's what attracted me to coming to work at LISOF, and also the technical execution that I saw. I was blown away,
Yeah.
you know. So I knew this was an institution that I would feel challenged by,
Yeah.
and that I was. So yeah, that was how it was for me.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think that what we did, maybe the magic behind it, was that in our second year we had a collection which was really experimental, and we had decided that it had to challenge us as staff first, and do something we hadn't done so that we could journey together. And it would never be us going in having experienced whatever this new project was, but whatever experience we'd come from, we would use that to springboard into this new unknown space. And I remember, one of there were hundreds of them, but the stocking project, when we decided, and really it came from driving, to Durban, and there's escort on the way, and making, you've got this fabulous visual of these legs with the stockings, and I was thinking to myself, geez, imagine if we could get stockings, because now we didn't have any money, so we had to always have it sponsored. So now we can get sponsored stockings, but what are we going to do with them? And I remember having that conversation with you, Ing, when I said to you, okay, I think we're going to cut these things up and try and bring colour to them and make clothes. And I think I was most moved by what we could do, because they had created some extraordinary garments that were actually made out of stockings. I think that was the felting when you and I went off to literally shear sheep for, we had to collect bales of wool. Little did we know, so much of that was in experimenting ourselves, you know, and the laughs, oh my God, that, you know, I also remember with the, what's his name, Brett Goldman and his
I was thinking of the same thing.
and his grass dress and you and I in the field with that guy saying, you know, pick a square. I mean, pick a square so that we can do what with this, you know, and we're just killing ourselves out there. So there were so many opportunities for us to learn, and those are special moments, hey? They were...
Well, look, I mean, obviously, you know, as you said already, I mean, the numbers were smaller, and I think it was nice that we had the opportunity to kind of play a little bit in the beginning, and then as the school grew, you know, we were in a good momentum. We knew what we were doing, and it was easy to scale up to what we, I think, became a consistent kind of number.
Yeah.
Of students, you know, every year, and and then, as you said, new staff coming on board, and it was easy to, you know, to orientate them to the LISOF way and how we did things.
Yeah, I think once we were regulated and assessed, and there were regulations in place, accreditation bodies and so on, definitely gave a different kind of understanding and analysis to what we were doing, and we were able to channel, because we had all this raw information. So, you know, having very specific pathways which we could then unpack, reprogram and scale up, that made it much easier for us, and we were able to retain its consistency.
No, everything was there. We had a good. I mean, you know, even I think we were from the beginning, as we said, we were regulators ourselves because we had such high standards. So it's not that we had to really, you know, make that much of a shift.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was easy.
Yeah, it was kind of like in Word, and then we had to Excel it. Transport to Excel. But yeah, I mean, I'm actually looking up here, and this is the stocking. This is actually the stocking. I just caught my eye. This one here, and these two were actually made from legs, just stocking legs. That's it.
The top as well.
Yeah,
In the
that
middle,
one over there.
the full length, and the felting.
And the felting, which is over here and here. So those were the very first
experimental
projects. Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful.
And then we actually did a lot of commercial projects. It became apparent that we needed to kind of balance all the experimentation with the commercial output, really. And we started with projects we did. Sure, we did a lot of projects. BlackBerry, Philips,
Levi's,
Alsate, Coca-Cola, Adam. We did the Opal Adam. We did a lot of commercial projects. So the students, again, it was another way. We did Nando's, was another way that students could relate, because at that point, it's now quite relatable. You're talking to products that are, that's, speak to the learner, to that cohort. So, yeah, and now we move on to LISOF's next stage, where it becomes Australia.
So what made you make the decision to sell your, then I think 24-year-old baby?
Yeah.
Because this was your baby, and
So I think at that point when, the face of education has changed drastically, and I think that being part of a bigger operation, bigger institution, where there are opportunities for students to literally cross-pollinate and collect, even if it's in the short learning programs from other institutions, being able to mingle with other learners from different fields, can only enrich the learning. And I think very often as a student, learning is not just about what the field that you're in, but it's about lifestyle as well, and being able to understand from a different learning outcomes, from a different perspective. So a student doing a business qualification, which we've now, I think that was the one thing we didn't mention, was how seamlessly we were able to incorporate the business side of fashion. Because as we were just saying earlier on, they became so employable that there was always an opportunity for a buyer or for a planner or for somebody more in the commercial field. And we never kind of felt that they were ready for that. So we then had created the business side of fashion and had that qualification registered and accredited. And the minute we had that done, we realized that we were now expanding the mind of a fashionista into the business of fashion. And I think as this is like the natural progression for LISOF's life, is to move into that next sphere, and that next level of incorporating other influences like media. And again, we did include media in our learning, but it would be very nice for a learner to be able to extend into an honours specifically in media or broadcasting and so on. A student doing the business, as I said, BCom, would be great for them to be able to do an honours and move more into understanding the business world, and it being the practice of fashion would be fantastic for a student. So we would, it's too much of a niche as it is, and it needed to be expanded into another sort of world almost, and for the students to be exposed to this other world. It was a natural progression for LISOF's life, and I felt that this was an opportunity now for me and for us to hand over the banner, and that's for LISOF's, for the good of LISOFians out there, and for LISOF's life. Otherwise it stagnates. There needs to be growth. There needs to be other opportunities. Otherwise you don't breathe life into it. This needs to go further. It needs to be, and I think we have prepared this baby beautifully for its next journey. We have created such a magical, special institution that can only grow from strength to strength in the right hands with the right people. And I believe, and there were many offers, and Ingrid and Pat will tell you, many offers knocking on our door, but Stadio is the right place for us, and I could see in that how it could mature into this next phase and space. And I am very proud that we were able to create such an incredible institution of value that was worthy of being taken over by Stadio. And that's something I think we are immensely proud of, and I'm grateful and excited for every LISOFian, past and present, to be part of this onward journey.